2 slide decks today, and then regardless of the amount of time that takes, I don't anticipate it will take the whole allotted time today. And then next time we meet, I believe we have 1 or 2 meetings next week. We'll have 2 more slide decks, and then we will start prepping for our practicum. We're not going to meet at all the week of the 9th, and that will be a good time for everyone to be working on their practicum. So when we meet the following week, we'll be ready to potentially wrap up this training and then cancel any additional sessions that may have been scheduled, or depending on the time, we might need to use more of them. So without further ado, I see that Leslie has started the recording. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Today, we're going to start on the alerts and data management with reports. Oh, I think we have a question, Leslie. I saw a little red dot on the
Yes,
chat.
Lucy just wants to know more about the practicum that you mentioned and what like resources do they need to prepare for that.
Okay, so for the practicum, I'll be sending out written instructions, and you will be entering the train site. We also call it the testing site. I will provide a link to that. And Leslie, if you have anyone who doesn't have access to the train site yet, please send those requests to the Alaska Jobs Help Desk, because I know you do have a few new folks on here, and we can make sure that's set up for anyone who had the train site before that may have forgotten their password. You'll want to then at that point, once you get the instructions, reach out to Leslie so she can ask for any password resets. I will be providing the link to the train site, and Leslie also has it. She can send it out after this and say, hey guys, for those of you who've had it before, try to log in. But it will be really critical, and you'll see on the instructions, it'll kind of be in bright red and very important only to do your practicum in the train site. And the reason we do it there is because that information doesn't go into production where we have our actual data. The train site is completely separate, and we only put fake information into the train site. And so it'll be a place where it mimics Alaska Jobs for the most part. You won't be able to see all of the different things that you wanted to see in the background, like different vendors and stuff, but it will be very specific what you were asked to select, so you will be able to do that. So when we get to that part, you will receive written instruction. But in the meantime, Leslie, if after this you want to send out to folks that link to the train site so people can see if they can log in, and if they can't, you can get a list of people that need to have their passwords reset, as well as making those requests, Leslie, for any new staff. All right. Without further ado, if I answered the question, or if was there anything else, Leslie, in the chat?
No other questions in the chat at this time.
Okay. So we're going to look at alerts with data management and reports today. I know that as we're going through this, you may have heard me say, and you can manage your data by seeing an alert. Well, let's jump into that and seeing what it is. So Alaska Jobs alerts can be set up by program, can be personalized, and will produce a message to the staff person upon each login to Alaska Jobs. This helps us manage our data and in real time wherever possible, or in near time, if you will. They're found under the main menu under the heading Communications, Alerts, My Alerts, and then if you scroll to the bottom, you can modify your alert subscriptions. These are set by the software provider of Alaska Jobs. So we can't just say, hey, can we get 5 more alerts that do this? Because there could be a cost involved. So what they've done is they've said, these are the alerts that seem to be most appropriate for data management, and then going from there. So this is what it might look like if you were to say modify my alerts and then go to the WIOA section. So the first one is WIOA activity projected start date. When I use this alert, when I have cases, I always set this to 1 day prior because I want to know only very shortly before it happens that I need to put an actual start date in. If I have put something that only has a projected start date, like something that's going to happen in the future, like I know next week, this person is going to start training. So I put that service line in there. And because next week hasn't happened, I can only put a projected begin date. That's when I want to be alerted. So I can go in and put that actual begin date. I can also then circle back with my customer and say, how was the first day of training? Or verify it, whatever it is that I need to do. And with this, this is also going to tell me maybe the training starts on a Saturday. If this happens, that's why I want to know every day after that I didn't do this work, that I didn't put the actual start date. So if I get this alert on Friday because they're going to start training on Saturday, I want to then get it again on Monday. So I can then go in and put that date in and verify that they started on that Saturday. If I say on the day only, then I need to make sure that I have otherwise calendared that alert. I use an Outlook calendar, and I would have needed to then go in and put for Monday, start put in that actual begin date for my customer and check. So these are ways that we can determine how do we manage our own data. So you could put this maybe to 5 days in advance. Well, that might drive you crazy if you have it set for every day after and you go, well, I can't even do it yet. And so you might keep getting this alert, and then you might not want to look at your alerts and you might miss something important. So depending on how you manage yourself, you might have this 1 day prior and you might want it to tell you every day after if you didn't do it, or you might say just the day of, and you might be someone who then puts that on a different calendar that you're looking at daily, and you put it on the day that you want to enter the data. So that's about how you manage yourself. Then we have the activity projected end date. I always want to know 1 day prior to when that is going to be projecting to end. And this is any activity. So if whether it's training or whether it's a support service, whatever it might be, I always want to have that heads up 1 day prior so I can circle back to the provider or the customer, whoever it is, and make sure that I check in on that date and see, is it accurate? Was it extended? Did it end early? Review that service line. And then I always want to know every day after. I want it to poke me and say, hey, you didn't do that. But if you're someone who can manage your data and you just get it 1 day prior and you're going to then put it on your calendar for the next day to do it, then you could say on the day only. You could also, again, have this say 5 days prior, I think 15. It could bug you and make you insane if you'd like, but that's up to you. WIOA soft exit. This alert is when someone is getting ready to soft exit. I like to set mine at 30 days prior, and I want it to tell me one time because when it does, I'm going to go out to my calendar and look over the next couple of weeks and find a time to schedule some time to review that file in whole. So I can say, okay, did I do the closure? Did I check all the boxes? Did I put the correct case notes in? Do I have all the documents set up? Did I check all the dates? Have I entered all of my services? And I'm going to schedule that time. So I just want to know about a month before so I can make sure that I pay attention to this and take time to do it. You could say 30 days prior, you could say 15 days prior, I think 60 days prior to. It depends on how you do your scheduling and what your other work looks like. So And just as a side note, it is critical to have actual begin dates once something actually begins. Because if you let that go too long without putting the actual begin date, if you have something that's projected to start, it will do a system closure. And we cannot have system closures, and it creates misreporting. And depending on any other services you may or may not have available in that section, it could close and exit your entire file, which you may not have planned on. So it's important to be alerted of these things. In the past, we had a different system. I don't know if any of you have been around long enough to have worked in the system prior to Alaska Jobs, but we didn't get alerts, and we were always having to run reports and find out what was going on, and our data would sometimes get messy. So that's a big bonus to this system. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. The WIOA follow-up
Giselle, I
alert.
have a
Oh,
question.
yep.
So for I know you're looking at the WIOA alerts, but I noticed in this section in the beginning it starts off with individual alerts. So you mentioned the other day about some pre-screening. So if a grantee had a system or intake where they do pre-screening with the basic skills and have the youth do some assignments, but they have not been enrolled yet. Can they use those individual alerts to keep up with pre-assessments for inquiries?
Will you ask me that in a little while? Because I'm going to actually go into the alert section and we're going to look at to see that there are some other ones, and I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so hold that question, Leslie, make a note if you need to, so we could take a look. When we look at this WIOA alerts, these are for people that are enrolled, but there's other types of alerts, and we'll look at that. Another WIOA alert is the follow-up alert. This means that you have a follow-up coming due. I set mine to 30 days prior, and I want it to drive me insane until I get them done. You can say on the day only, and then you can make a note on your calendar or do whatever. But I want this to keep bugging me until I've done all of my follow-ups for that quarter. So that my list might be getting shorter, but let's say that I get this and I say, oh, I'm going to send all these emails out today for follow-up. All right, I feel good. I did what I was supposed to do. And then I forget about it because I only had it done on the one day, and I forgot to put something on my calendar to follow up, and then some of the follow-ups start trickling in, and then I'm trying to keep track of who I have done and who I haven't done. Now I could run a report, but this is my personal preference about how I manage my work. So you'll have to decide how you want to set up your follow-up alert. But follow-ups are required, so I want to make sure I get mine done, and I want it to bug me until I finish them. Um, let's see. You could also set that for 60 days prior to when it's due, and it gives the due date as the last date of the calendar quarter, just so you're aware. Individual number of days since the last Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act activity. I want to know if I haven't had a new activity since 60 days. And I only want it to tell me once because it might not mean that I have inaccurate information. I might just need to pop in and take a peek at that file and say, oh, I forgot to put in this other service that I was providing. Or I could pop in and say, oh, this service that I said was happening isn't happening. I'd like to remove that. So this is more of it. Doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your file. It's more of a, I should take a look because after 90 days, will it be time to look at exiting? And you could also see that other alert for exits. This is more of a, has time lapsed? Have I paid attention? Have I taken a peek at this file? Do I need to do anything? And then the WIOA case note reminder. I have mine set at 30 days without a case note because we need to have a contact once per month and it needs to be documented. And the case notes are the most common place for documenting that contact. If I don't have a case note in there, I want it to bug me every day, whether it be that I put a case note that I've reached out to the participant, or that I'm not going to put the case note in that I reached out until I hear back from them, and I'll put it on my calendar so I can keep bugging them. Whatever it might be, I want to set it in that type of fashion. There are some IEP alerts, but I'm going to tell you, if you're not using that plan section and you're doing an ISS, um, and you're doing it like a hard copy and having them sign it, you don't even need to worry about this. But if you are using that plan section, and I know it says IEP, it's also ISS, it's kind of the same. Um, then you would want to set these alerts up, letting you know that, hey, a goal's coming up, an objective that we put in there is coming up. We need to review this. It sounds like it's going to complete soon. And I think you guys probably understand the concept of what I'm getting to by now is you need to determine what this means for you. How many days in advance would you want to know? Do you want to know one time? Do you want it to bug you every day? And so on and so forth. I don't use these because I don't use the plan section. I use a paper hard copy IEP that both me and the participant sign. And then if we have to update one, we do that again. The plan section to me is not the most user-friendly. The document doesn't look very user-friendly, in my opinion, to a participant to have a clear understanding what is happening. But that may be something that you work with your program coordinator and make those decisions of what's best for the program. Okay, so before we go on to reports, I'm going to go and show you the alert section. I'm logged into my Alaska Jobs account, and I'm going to go down and find these alerts. They're under the communications portion, and here's alerts. And I want to see my alerts. And I'm going to first just scroll right to the bottom and say modify my alert subscriptions. Now, depending on how your privileges are set up as a grantee, you may or may not see all of these options for alerts. So these individual registrant alerts are really about Wagner Pizer. These are the people that are coming into the job center, getting those services at the onset in the resource rooms. So if we need to know, and you could still use them if you have them available. So someone that's on your caseload, if they created a new resume in Alaska Jobs, you could get an alert about that. I don't know if you could see the resume, but you could get an alert, and maybe that would tell you to contact your customer and say, hey, I'd like you to share that resume with me, or I'd like to review it with you. Bring a copy, or come to my office at this time and you could log into a computer and we'll look at it. Individual service creation. This alert can notify you when an individual on your caseload creates a new service record. This could mean that they received a service from Wagner Pizer. This could mean that you got a co-enrollment going and the other case manager created a record. It doesn't always give you all the details, but it could alert you. I personally don't use these because I would work with my partner if I was case managing together with someone. Individual referral creation. This is someone on your caseload generates a job referral. So this is something that is out of your control, but you could know that something happened. Hey, they looked at that job and they indicated that they wanted to learn more. So maybe they applied for it. Maybe you reach out to them. The individual number of days since the last activity. Again, that's someone on your caseload who's not generated any new activity. So maybe they haven't gotten in and to Alaska Jobs to look for jobs or get those services. It may or may not even affect you. Individual changes to profile. You probably don't need to know this information because it's also not going to tell you what the changes were, but they might have made some changes to their general information tab, which is their section of Alaska Jobs. And then there's individual changes to the profile or the background. If they change something in their background information, you might want to know, and you might say, hey, what kind of updates are happening? Maybe it will affect you, but these are the individual registrant alerts. You have zero control over when you get them. It's if a thing occurs. And again, I'm not even sure if you have access to these alerts, because I don't know what your privilege groups look like as youth grantees. You shouldn't have job order alerts, and if you do, please, by all means, ignore those. Those are for Wagner Pizer staff only. You shouldn't have an eligible training provider alert, but if you see it pop up, please do not touch that. That is for our ETPL program coordinator. Same with Wagner Pizer alerts. Please do not touch that if you are not a Wagner Pizer staff. Those are job center staff. But here we come down to our WIOA alerts. We talked about these first three. Here's one that you might be interested in. WIOA male participants about to turn 18. So if you have some enrolled that are under 18, you might want to turn on this alert so you can then start prompting them about selective service. And here you can see, you can set this 1 day prior, 15 days prior, or 30 days prior. You can get it one time or every day after. And these ones we reviewed, you can see you can have 1, 5, 15, or 30 days. Same with the projected end date, and the soft exit, the max is 30 days. And I always set it to the max because I want to know about a month before so I can have plenty of time. We also have the WIOA Younger Youth Goals about to expire. This is going to alert you when you have an individual with youth goals and it's about to expire, where the status is set but attainment is pending. Here again, 1 day, 15 days, 30 days, you could get it on the day of and you could calendar it or however else you manage your time, or you could get it every day after until you take care of this goal. We also have someone that may have an expiring work authorization. If you put that work authorization in there with an expiry, you can set that to notify you. If this was me, I would do it for sure 30 days prior so I could say, hey, are you on that? Have you been working on your work authorization to make sure that it is renewed, and move from there. The follow-up alert, we talked about that, and that's letting us know when we're going to follow up. You could go up to 90 days prior, or 60 or 30 would probably be the most realistic. 90 is in my opinion a little bit overkill, because the quarter has just started and someone might not have the follow-up that's necessary, the information that's necessary. Then we have the literacy numeracy pre-test and post-test, and it's saying this hasn't been posted. So it's going to notify you when a youth is enrolled that meets the requirements for literacy numeracy testing, and they have not had a pre-test posted within 60 days of their first youth service. And that's, you might want to know 30 days prior, and you might say, okay, we're about halfway there. We need to get this going. And then we have the same for the post-test. And it's letting you know you need to update your records appropriately, and you have up to 90 days on this one. I'm going to pause for a moment. Is there any questions so far, Leslie? Anything in the chat, Leslie? She may have stepped away.
Yes. Steve was asking, will Alaska Jobs let you enter a male under 18 in a database if you must check no on the register with select service question? If so, what is the procedure?
Okay, so Alaska Job calculates that person's age at the time of enrollment. So it will not require selective service if they're under 18. But once they turn 18, you need to help them know that they need to register. Does that answer the question? If they are 18 or older, Alaska Jobs is going to make you make a selection. And if
Okay,
you say no, they're not going to be eligible.
he says, thanks, great. Thank you. I
Okay.
also was reading in a Teagle, I want to say Teagle 1111. In that case, they have 30 days from their 18th birthday to register with select services before we have to exit them. But do we do a hard exit or with a system exit if we don't check yes for selected service within 18 days, between 30 days after their 18th birthday?
That's a good question, Leslie, and I don't know the answer. I don't know if the
Okay.
system will exit or if it's something that we have to take care of. But it would not be a global exclusion. It would be that we halted all services and then 90 days will pass and a soft exit if we are the exiters. But I don't know. That's a great question. Okay, anything else?
No other questions in the chat at this time.
Okay, so we're going to move on with these alerts. And then when we get done with our meeting today, everyone should go in there and update and look at their alerts if they don't already have them going.
I have one more question,
Yep.
Giselle.
Uh-huh.
For the grantees, as a program coordinator for like, and I'm a grantee, is it a way that I can pull all of my case management alerts, or will they have to like print them and give them to me manually?
Okay, so are you saying all of your grantees alerts?
So like I'm just pretend like I'm Heidi at KPC.
Uh-huh.
Can Heidi pull all her case managers alert, or
No.
let's okay.
These alerts go only to the person whose account this belongs to. So each person has
Okay.
their individual staff account or grantee account. Yeah, believe me, that would be skookum, huh? And we asked about it quite some time ago, and they said no, that is not a feature of this system. So, we're going to go on to reports soon, and reports is another way to see what data is and isn't being done or that needs to be done. So alerts are individualized, so you could say, I'm going to stay on top of my data. The reports are a secondary way of seeing that information, but potentially for more. Or Heidi could say, Lisa, run your reports and hand them off to me, or something like that. So we're going to get to that. But good question. Okay, and
One more question.
uh-huh,
Heidi is asking, can you show us how to get to the alert section again?
certainly. Okay, so I'll just go back to the PowerPoint first. Um, So we'll go to the main menu, and under the heading communications, you'll go to alerts, my alerts, scroll to the bottom and modify your subscriptions. Also done here. Here's the main menu. I'm going to go to the communication section. Keep in mind, mine looks different from everyone's. I have a lot more sections in mine, but I found communications, alerts, my alerts, and then go all the way to the bottom, hit modify my alert subscriptions, and then you can go down to WIOA and start seeing those alerts. Okay. We already talked about individual number of days since activity. We have a case note reminder, and here's a monthly reminder of no staff activity in the past 30 days. This is going to let you know that you haven't had any activity created or updated in the past 30 days. This doesn't necessarily mean that anything's wrong with your case. I also want to circle back to the case note reminder. When you're creating a case note, you must put the program and associated program application number in there for it to count as a case note Otherwise, you'll keep getting this alert and you'll say, I've done 5 case notes this month. Why is it telling me this? It will only read into this as having been taken place if you select the program, which is WIOA Title I, and the associated application for that customer. Then it's a completed case note to not count to count against this, so it wouldn't keep bugging you. So that's something that Job Center staff found out the hard way. They were going in there and then just every day trying to put a new case note. They couldn't figure out why this alert was still happening. Okay, so that's a side note. You shouldn't have any of these other sections in here except maybe IEP. Except you might have at the bottom case management alerts, new case assigned to staff. So if you're transferring cases between other staff in your group at your agency, you might have this, but really, do you need that? Or are you having those conversations with your coworkers saying, hey, I'm transferring this case to you, reach out to this customer. And then you'll hit save at the bottom. If you didn't make any changes, you could hit cancel. It wouldn't hurt you to hit save if you weren't sure. Or you could return to the dashboard. So I'm just going to hit save. And it says your alert subscriptions have been updated. Okay. So we're going to go back here and find where we were. Hey, any questions so far about alerts?
No questions are in the chat.
Okay. Again, it's going to depend on your privilege settings, how that's set up, because you guys are youth grantees, of what you may see in there, but you should at least see those WIOA ones and the IEP ones. All right, Alaska Jobs Reports. Reports are generally run at the supervisory level or higher due to some privilege restrictions, but most of the common reports can be run by a case manager to obtain the data pertinent to their assigned cases. So reports to help with primary data management. We're going to be looking at some of these, and I want to give you a pre-warning that sometimes the software provider for Alaska Jobs says, I'm going to slightly alter this report or alter slightly where I put it in the list or that kind of thing. So first we're going to look at some reports to do quarterly follow-up status, soon to exit cases, and targeted measurable skill gains. So we already said there was an alert for follow-up and an alert for cases that we're going to exit. But if you missed the alert or for any reason you want to run a report that has additional information, then this is what you'll do. So these can be found under detailed reports, case management, caseload, and so on and so forth. So let me just look at my next slide. Here we go. So we go to reports and then detailed reports and then case management. Case management reports, not program specific. Right here, case management reports. And then caseload. And see how this tree is expanding as it goes down. Then we have all these cool reports, but sometimes the software provider will say, I'm moving targeted measurable skill gains over here, and I'm going to do quarterly follow-up status and move it over here. So the point is that you want to go and take a look and find them. Once you get to the first report we're going to look at is targeted measurable skill gains. It will open up all these selections for you. Some of the things you need to select, some of them you don't. So in this case, I would select Title I, and then I would scroll through my customer group and find youth. I don't need to change anything for the region, for the state region, but down here at the region where we have a local workforce development board, I would select whatever region you're using. If you're a statewide staff and you have people enrolled throughout regions, you would probably say none selected, or you could select all of them by holding down control. And when that happens, the office locations will come open and you can select your office. So I always select my region and my office. You don't really need to do anything here in the grant section. There's nothing to do here. None of these pieces will apply to you, so you just let it be this grant section. Case assignment, this is where I would say select me, because I want to know my cases that are assigned to me. And then I would come down to the bottom for the date range. And for targeted measurable skill gains, I'm always going to select from this dropdown current program year. That's going to then default my dates to say 7/1/24 to 6/30/25, because I want to know what targeted measurable skill gains that I need to enter for this program year. And then I'm going to say run report. This information is going to come up like this. It is not user friendly in this location. So what you'll want to do is come to this old timey floppy disk icon, use the drop down and select Excel. Put this into Excel so it is usable data for you. Also, it will only show a limited amount of information and you'll have to scroll through. It can be very difficult to use in this format, so I always push my data into Excel. When that happens, the first thing I would do is click on the number 6 or the corresponding row that has all of these headers in it. And then I would click on data, and then I would click on filter, because I would want to add a filter to every single one of these columns. So I could make a determination if something looked accurate at the onset. You could just add a filter to the last MSG column there, but what I like to do is add a filter to every single one so I can first sort by those that don't have an MSG, and then I can start looking at the data in another way. You could also highlight the whole table and insert a table and have filters. There's a bunch of ways to do this. The simplest one is to select your row number, to hit data, and add filters. And this is showing how you could add a single filter. This is showing how you could add a table for those of you that wanted to learn that part. But again, the easiest way is to go ahead and add filters across the top. Okay, before we ask questions, let's do some of this. Okay, so I'm going to go to the main menu. I'm going to go down to reports, and I'm going to go to detailed reports, and then case management. Please remember this being recorded so you can view this again. So I was at reports, detailed reports, case management, case status, now case load. They've added another piece in the tree. And I'm going to find the targeted measurable skill gain report. Okay, it's already on Title 1. That's great news. I'm going to ask, will any one of you volunteer for me to run your information? Heidi? Anyone?
You can go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we can do an example. So I've selected Title I and Youth. Heidi, I believe you're Gulf Coast, but I'm just going to find your office here in case you have anything statewide. And you guys are under Kenai Peninsula College, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't see Kenai. Oh, because it's on Anchorage.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was on Anchorage. Okay, so I selected Gulf Coast. And now I'm going to find Kenai Peninsula College. It's the grantee name. I'm skipping everything in the grant, skipping. And so for this one, instead of me, because I won't show up, I'm going to select Heidi here.
If you select me, though, nothing's going to come up because I don't
Oh.
case manage.
Okay. How about Lisa?
Yeah, Lisa will be fine.
I'm gonna put Lisa in here. You could also, and I here's what I don't know. I don't know what privilege groups you guys have. If you could select more people or if you could get a case management group. So in this case, it's usually an individual running it and it could be privilege based. So I'm just gonna select one person and I'm gonna say current program year, which automatically updates my dates. I could do a reset here. I could save this to my reports and then have it scheduled to run, but I'm just going to run this report.
And just as a side note, I've ran it without a case manager selected, and then I get everybody. So just so you guys know.
Perfect. Okay, that's good. And that could be a privilege thing. So that's great to know. I never know when it comes to people's privilege groups. So in this case, I see this data. I would like to just work with this data. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to put it into Excel. And then that's going to open here. Going to open somewhere. There we go. Here's that data. So the first thing I'm going to do to make this simple is click on the number 6. That's the row corresponding. It highlights my whole row. I'm going to go to data and click on filter. That added filters everywhere for me here. So in this case, I would go to the last MSG date and I want to select all so I can then just select blanks. So these are the ones that hasn't yet this program year, and we have more than half of a program year to go, that are in some type of a training service, or if we have a or someone that needs a measurable skill gain. So maybe they're not in a training service, but they require an MSG. So this says when that began. And then we're going to need at some point to have an MSG. So we can go along here. We can also see, okay, what was their first status? This is a graduate. So because they're a graduate, I would never expect to see anything under secondary transcript or high school diploma. I would expect to see it under a skills progression or a training milestone or maybe an EFL gain or post-secondary if they're taking post-secondary. This is someone who is not attending. Oh, let me see. Let me see if you have one. I don't know if I can. I'll have to expand these. I'm trying to see if you have one that is a dropout, so we could see where we would. Okay, right here. Okay, so this person, we might expect to see something under secondary or diploma. And diploma also counts for high school equivalency. Okay, so that's how I would work with this. And then if I said, well, I don't remember what happened last, I would just start removing my filters. So everything could be seen. And it tells what the activity is, the provider, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to close this. Thank you for letting me use you as an example, Heidi/Lisa. So that's how we run that report. Okay, I'm going to go back and look at some other reports. Since I'm in reports, I could just go to select another case status report. I could reset my search criteria, update it, save to my reports, or return to manage reports. From here, I could say select another one. So if I did that, it brings me back to that tree where I've already drilled down to this section. Alternately, I could go back here, go back to reports, detailed reports, case management, case status, case load. Here's my lovely reports. Now I'm going to run a quarterly follow-up status report. Okay, so the program, Title I, and you would select youth, but I'll use myself as an example in this one. I don't need to do anything for this part of the location. I'll just grab Gulf Coast here. Yeah, I think I have one in Gulf Coast I could use. And then I'll find where I do mine, which is Kenai Peninsula Job Center. Here's where we need to pay attention, the details of the follow-up. The month the record is due, you're always going to use the end of a calendar quarter. So it's silly that they have anything in here other than March, June, September, and December. I want to know what to do this quarter, at the end of this quarter. So I'm going to say December. I'm on 2024. I'm going to not put anything on follow-up type because I don't care which one it is, first, second, third, or whatever. But here's where I want to pay attention. I'm going to hold my control key down. I'm going to click on required, pending, and not complete because I don't care about what I've already done. I want to know what I haven't done. And then I'm going to go down here, not going to do anything in the grant. In case assignment, I'm going to say select me, and that populated my name. As Heidi said, sometimes on these, if you don't select anything, it can show everyone in your group, which for me would be Peninsula Job Center. I don't need to do anything in the display options. I'm just going to now run this report. Here's that report. I never even do anything with it until I pull it straight into Excel. All right, I don't need to on this one, but I could put my filter on here by saying data and then filter, but it's not necessary. I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to say, these are the 3 that I need to do. I could also have some ancillary information here, and it will also tell me which quarter it is for that participant. Okay, so we've run the targeted measurable skills gains. We've run the follow-up. We needed to know what's coming for follow-up. And now we're going to select another case management or case status report. And we want to see the soon to exit cases. So I want to know within 45 days, what Title I cases for youth are going to plan on exiting. And I don't know if any will come up. It depends on if you have some that are going to exit, but I'll use Gulf Coast as the region, and I'm just going to let this hang out here, and it'll show if there's for some other ones. Let's see. And I don't need to put any staff here because I want to see all of them. But if I did want to, this one's a little bit different. So I'm going to show you how to use this one. I would start typing either the first or last name, then I would select it, and then I would have to click add to put that, and then I could do additional ones. But I'm not going to show up in there, so I'm just going to remove that. So I'm going to hit run. We may or may not get any data because they might not have any that are getting ready to exit during that time. There isn't. There's nothing that's about to exit in 45 days. But this was the other way to look at if you didn't have that alert going for what is coming up to soon to exit. I'm going to show you another report that I don't think was on our PowerPoint. Let's check. It's go back to our list of reports right here. So we looked at quarterly follow-up status, soon to exit, and targeted measurable skill gains. We're also going to look at the detailed reports for services. We're not going to look probably at this financial report because I don't know if you guys have your financials updated, but you would do this, you just follow this path, and then you would look at it by participant. You'd enter that participant's name, and then it will show you. If someone wanted to volunteer a participant's name that they know had costs associated on the service lines, then I would be able to show you that. But first, we're going to look at this list report to find out about the services provided to an individual. And there's a reason that we're going to look at this. This is how we're going to identify if we have any system closures or unknown statuses for our services. Okay, so I don't want to call anyone out, so I'm going to use job center data to look at some of these, and they're probably not going to show a system closure. If they do, they do. So in this case, we're not going to caseload. We went to case status, but we're going to go down to services. And then we're going to say services provided individual. So see how there's all these trees. We were up here in case management, case status, case load. Instead of case management, I'm still in detailed, and I'm going to go down to services. And then I want to see services provided individual. And then I think it's under local. Is it under local? No, I think it's under service. This is another one where they changed it and updated, adding something else here. So we're services private individual service, and then we're going to look at the list. Okay, so I'm going to say Title 1. And I'm gonna, that's all I'm gonna do. We could say youth, but we're not going to. We're gonna look at something else. I'm gonna say something maybe in the adult or dislocated worker and combat worker section. We'll see. So I'm just selecting Title 1 for this example, but you, of course, would go and select youth on yours. You don't need to worry about any partner program information. The more information you enter, the more restricted the data will come back, and you could miss something. We don't need to do anything on co-enrollment. We're going to look at location, and I'm going to select Gulf Coast. And in this case, I'm going to drill down and say Kenai Peninsula Job Center. I don't need to do anything with the geographic section. The staff, let's enter my name. Okay, I got to do it by last name because that's what I've selected. Select myself. I'm going to click add. I don't need to do any of this other business here. I'm not going to restrict this any further. I'm not going to restrict it by activity because I want to look at all the services. I'm not going to restrict it by the individual characteristics. Again, I don't want to restrict this by the provider, the assistance, employment or unemployment, veteran status, barriers, youth barrier access. I don't want to restrict it by anything. I want to get the maximum number of data for all these customers. I'm going to look at the date, and I'm going to go to actual end date because I'm looking for specific data to make sure that I don't have any system closures. And normally what you would do is you would say current program year, but I'm not sure I have any data in the current program year. So for this example, I'm going to say previous program year. And I'm going to run that report. Fingers crossed. Okay, this is going to be information that I always want to put out into Excel so I can work with the data. And I'm going to use my filter by clicking on the row number to highlight all of it. Say data filter. And what I'm going to be looking for is the completion status. Now, normally you would see all the completion statuses in here that would say successfully, unsuccessful, dropped out, void, system closure, or unknown status. The reason you're not seeing anything is because this report is broken and we're expecting it to be fixed by next week. But what I would have normally done is I would click on this and I would select all to remove everything, and then I would find anything that said system closure and I would select that, and then I would see all the ones I had a system closure and I would know that I needed to fix those service lines. I see Jay's given me a 5-minute warning. Heidi, you have your hand up?
Yeah. So how do people's names get on this list? What is it that it's trying to?
Okay, so this is all of my participants that I have created a service line for, and it's going to bring every single service line that I created, or not even created. I said filter it by the actual end date. That means the service has ended, because I'm looking for specific data.
Okay, so we should have names on ours. If we ran that report ourselves, we should be seeing names on here. Is that what you're saying?
If you had services that ended. If you didn't, then you wouldn't select that. You might say by create date and add this information. What you're not going to see is the completion status, because that piece of the report is broken. But my understanding is that we're very close to having that fixed. And I'm expecting it to be fixed over the weekend.
Okay, I tried it with current program year and with previous program year, and I did not get any names for either option. But maybe I'm doing it wrong.
And did you use actual end date?
The name of our program, you mean, for actual entity?
No, actual end date in the, here, let's go back.
Actual end date. I don't have that as a filter option.
At the very, let me go back to the report.
And I don't know if anybody else is see the same thing or not, but down at the very bottom down there,
yeah,
I don't have a filter by date option. I only have date range from and to.
Oh, you don't have the filter by date?
Yeah, that one's not an option. So I can either do previous program year or current program year, and both options, nothing comes up. So that's why I was wondering how people's names get on this list. Maybe we're just not selecting something right in order for their names to get onto this list, however people get onto this list.
Okay, so you would have selected Title I, youth. Yep. Okay, and then you would have selected your region and your office.
Yes.
Okay, and then you don't have to select staff here.
Correct. I did not select any particular staff.
Okay. Then you select nothing else. Make sure everything's on none selected as you go through.
Which I don't have all those options anyways.
Okay.
Mostly. And I get all the way down to previous program year, current date range, all the way down to date range, and then I picked that.
Okay, and then just to cross-check Heidi, and again, sometimes these are tricky because of what's available. Just to cross-check, you went to services to provide an individual, and then service, and then list versus local list.
I don't know. Let me look.
Okay.
That's what it was. I went local list, not service list.
Okay.
I'll try it that way. Thank you.
And that's one of the things that GSI, our software creators, sometimes say, we're going to move this and we're going to put this in here. And then it's like, oh gosh, where is it? So that's why sometimes I used to have like a list of how to run in these reports, but they changed them so much that I just want to give the basics on how to do this, and then you can explore. So here's what I'm going to tell you about reports. You can't mess anything up searching for data. So feel free to explore in these reports. Explore. Look around, try things out, say, does this report help me in any way? And sometimes you'll also see, and I'm just going to go back to the case management caseload reports. Sometimes you go, oh, this seems right, credentials required. And you'll run that report and you're like, this is not even close to what I thought that was. And so that's part of the exploration process is you might not get what you think you're going to get based upon also what the report is named. Okay, it is time for our 15-minute break. When we come back, we're going to start on our next slide deck. And Leslie, you can go ahead and stop your recording. That way people know this is the one about alerts and reports. And